Welcome to Beyond the Legal Pad with attorney Laura Cowan.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Legal Pad with attorney Laura Cowan. Laura helps individuals and families navigate estate planning with care, ensuring their wishes are honored and their loved ones are protected. She simplifies the process, helping clients make key decisions today to avoid pain and conflict in the future. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is Breaking the Cycle of Overwork, Time Management Tips for Estate Planning Attorneys. Laura, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
So time management, boy, we all can struggle with that one. And in your experience, what are some of the biggest time management mistakes that attorneys make?
So I think especially as an estate planning attorney, one of the biggest time management mistakes you can make is trying to do everything yourself. And I guess this applies to all areas of law. But I hear so often from my students who are just launching their practice that they can't afford to have any kind of an assistant. They don't have the money for an assistant, so they don't get an assistant, which means they're doing everything themselves. And then it's just this vicious cycle. So I think one of the best ways to combat that is to start off by hiring at least an assistant, someone you can pass off things like graphic design. Maybe you have a paralegal who's helping you draft, just not doing everything yourself.
I feel like that's probably a hurdle for a lot of new business owners too, because you think like, oh man, no, I can't afford to bring on somebody or whatever. But there's a lot of virtual assistants. That's a big thing now. And I mean, there are ways that you can do it economically and look at the benefit saying, okay, well, this is going to free me up to do all the things that I need to grow my practice. So it's sort of like seeing the forest for the trees or looking further ahead.
Yeah. And once you have an assistant, so what we teach in the course is the ACE model, which is attracting clients, closing clients, and then executing the work. And we call that ACE. And the E of the executing, that should be done by a team member, systems, automation, right? Those are things that are really going to save you a lot of time, because estate planning, a lot of it is somewhat repetitive. Booking appointments, that should be automated. You shouldn't be wasting your time calling people back, and playing phone tag. That's the sort of thing that should be automated. There's a lot of things that can be automated with estate planning to focus on that E, so that you as the attorney can focus on A for attracting leads, which is hosting workshops, networking, and then C, closing at the client consultation. And so think about everything that happens after someone hires you. A lot of that, including the drafting of the first draft of the documents, can be done by someone else. And in my opinion, should be done by someone else, because that frees you as the attorney up to go focus on attracting leads and closing. Those are the two things that generate revenue. So my advice would be to lawyers listening to this is to think about, what do you do that generates revenue? And what do you do that only a lawyer can do? And focus on those things. And the systems, the operations, let an assistant set all of those things up for you, so you're free to go generate more revenue.
How you mentioned automation. Where do you land on some of the AI tools out there? Do you find that there's options there for estate planning attorneys to improve their workflow?
Absolutely. AI, my gosh, it is changing everything and changing it fast. It's almost hard to keep up. My tip with AI is, I did a presentation on this a couple of weeks ago. You want to learn and know enough about it that you're using it in your firm in a way that automates and streamlines things in a way that makes sense. But you don't want to be so focused on AI that you forget the reason why people hire you. And people hire you because of the connection, because they want a counselor, they want someone who has empathy, they want someone who they can talk to about their family dynamics. That's why people are really hiring you. So you already have what you need. This is my little saying here, is just like Dorothy, you already have what you need, right? You already have what you need to be successful. You as a person, you're personable and you're a good listener. You have all of that. Well, AI doesn't have that. Right. So
not yet, Laura. Not yet.
If they can make a replica of me on AI, wow. Yeah, it's use it to your advantage and learn about it, and don't stick your head in the sand about it, because it's not going away. But just remember, it's never going to be able to replace that human connection. And so I think lawyers that are going to be successful in the future are lawyers who are smart enough to figure out, I need to use this in some capacity in my firm. But people are going to hire me because of the way I make them feel. And I'm going to make them feel better than AI.
Yeah. And always double check, right? We all remember that story early on where there was a case where a lawyer used ChatGPT and it made up a case, I want to say.
It did, and I should be more clear about that. So with estate planning, I don't really use ChatGPT for anything other than helping me generate marketing content.
Sure.
So I know that's different. If you're a litigator, it helps with other things, and I can't really speak to that. But for estate planning, it's great just to help you with your marketing copy, creating materials, creating client emails, that kind of thing. It's really, really helpful. And so, yeah, you want to know what it's for, but definitely be careful using it when you're citing case law and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. In all aspects of life, be careful because they call it hallucinate, and it does make some things up sometimes.
Amazing. Yeah.
Do you have any other simple, more maybe but powerful hacks that can help estate planning attorneys be more efficient?
Outsourcing your drafting, I think, is one of the very first things that you can do once you have the resources. So a lot of estate planning is actually drafting the documents. And with drafting software, that's easier, right? We're no longer copying and pasting from a Word document, back and forth. But it still takes a little bit of time to actually go through the answer file and submit all the information and generate the documents and then tweak them and whatnot, maybe a couple of hours. And so this is the perfect thing to give to a virtual paralegal, is drafting the documents. And that's going to free you up. It's going to give you 2 hours plus per client. And it's often the bottleneck as well in the process. So you get the client, you have the design meeting, and then there's the drafting. And of course, no one wants to do the drafting. So you kind of put it off. And it's a lot easier if you can just send that out to a qualified paralegal. A lot of attorneys are doing drafting now as well. So, but that's kind of an administrative piece in some ways, because a lot of it is just data entry.
Right.
So outsourcing the drafting is a big one.
How do you recommend people find a good paralegal assistant, a virtual paralegal, anything like that? Do you have any places that you recommend people go?
Yeah, so we have a few that we recommend. Back Office Drafting is a company that we like. They've been in the business for, I think, over 20 years. So they've got really established systems and processes and double, 2 and 3 pairs of eyes looking at the documents to make sure that they're correct. So that's Back Office Drafting is one option. Or you can just simply search for an estate planning paralegal online, Upwork. There's different resources, but you can find a virtual estate planning paralegal who's familiar with drafting and whatever drafting software you're using. So that's another way to do it.
Can you talk about the danger of working reactively instead of proactively, and how estate planning attorneys can prevent this from happening?
Yeah, so reactively means you're just going to be cleaning up messes and you're never going to get any systems in place, and you'll be sort of treating every client a little bit differently, which is the opposite of what you want to be doing. You want to be proactive. And by being proactive, I mean setting the stage from day one, how the process works with your clients in terms of how many meetings are there going to be, how long is each meeting going to be, what happens at the signing ceremony, what doesn't happen. To the extent that you can educate your clients and really set the expectations from the beginning, you're going to have a much smoother process. If you don't have a process, then you can't set the expectations, and it's just going to be creating the wheel every single time. So having a process in place is going to help you be a lot more proactive, and it's just going to eliminate a lot of the problems. Like, I have people in my course who tell me clients don't show up for meetings, or they just cancel last minute. And this just baffles me, because I've never had a client not show up for a meeting. And I think it's because I use Calendly. And Calendly is one of those hacks that's a great hack for you right there. A lot of the students in my course, when I asked them what's one of the biggest tips they got, they didn't know about Calendly. Right. So no one ever misses a meeting in my firm because I have Calendly, and they get 3 reminder emails, and all of the emails clearly articulate what's going to happen at the meeting. So when they show up, they know what to expect. So this is going to eliminate the back and forth. Did I need to print out that questionnaire? I didn't realize I had to do this. All of these time wasting activities. So to the extent that you can be really proactive with your process and spell it out from the beginning, you're not going to have missed appointments. You're not going to have people who don't understand what's happening. Everything's going to be there. Yeah,
Calendly, not a sponsor, by the way, for anyone watching, but I love it. I love it. It's a lifesaver. I mean, I use it. Yeah, so many people book me through Calendly, and you're right. It just keeps you everything organized and keeps you from getting double booked, and it's a great tool.
Yeah, and another tip for lawyers when you're using Calendly is set up your meetings with different, booking schedules. So in other words, I've got a meeting for my peace of mind planning session, which is what I call my initial consult. Here's another nugget for you. Don't call your consult a free consult. If you don't want people canceling, give it a name. Peace of mind planning session sounds more fun than free consult, right?
Yep.
So when I set up my availability for that, I give a lot of availability over the next 10 days. Some mornings, some evenings. And when I was just starting, I would give some weekends because you want to get people in the door while they're interested and you want them to hire you as soon as possible. So I do a lot of availability for the consult, no more than 10 days out, because after 10 days, they're going to start to lose interest and they might cancel.
They'll forget.
Yeah, they'll forget, compare that to my signing ceremony. So this event, when I set this up in Calendly, I only have a couple of days per month that people can book. And the reason is because when you're signing the documents at my office, I need to get witnesses and a notary, and I have an assistant who joins me to assemble the binders. I don't want signing ceremonies randomly popping up on a Wednesday. You know what I mean? So I just give 2 Fridays a month, and then I knock out 3 or 4 each Friday. I have an assistant come in and assemble the binders for me, and I just knock them all out. So very limited availability for the signing ceremony, but a ton of availability for the consult. So these are little hacks that you can use. Not every meeting needs to be given a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday availability.
Good point. Yeah. You talked about making or developing a process. So important in any aspect of life and business, especially. What other tools or apps or any sort of little tricks do you tell estate planning attorneys that will help them organize their cases, track deadlines and whatnot?
So a CRM is going to be great for this. Something like Clio or Practice Panther, Lawkus, Lawmatics. There's a lot of different options out there. We use Lawkus in our firm, and we have a build out for it for our 2-hour lifestyle lawyers. But there's a lot of other great options as well. The thing that I would say about a CRM is that they're somewhat expensive and they don't really do anything if you don't take the time to set them up, which is what stops a lot of people. So you don't need to have a CRM right away, is what I would tell people. It's one of those things that if you get it too soon, you'll just be paying for it. You'll feel bad because you haven't set it up. Having said that, when you're ready for a CRM, something like Lawkus tracks all of your lead flow. It tracks every person from the minute they become a lead to now they've attended a webinar to now they're coming in for their peace of mind planning session, to their design, to their signing, and it moves your leads through that process and automates a lot of the communications that happen in between. So it really is kind of the bells and whistles. If you're serving 4, 5, 6 clients a month, then it makes sense to get a CRM just to be able to visually see where everyone is in your process. Make sure nothing is falling between the cracks and just know exactly where your law firm is. But again, we've set this up for our lawyers in our community, and it took us hundreds of hours to get this Lawkus set up the 2HLL way. And our build out just ports it right over to you. So you don't have to do any of it. It's worth every penny because again, there's no point in getting this software if you don't have the time to set it up and use it properly.
Yeah. And the learning curve can be kind of big on a lot of those CRMs because to your point, they're very robust. Sure, there's some real simple ones out there, but if you really want one that's going to work for you, there's a lot to learn.
There's a lot to learn, and the workflow, I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, right? So it's a pretty easy workflow. It makes sense, but getting all of the tags done and all of the automations, that just takes a lot of time. And if you don't know anything about automations and workflow, you're not going to know how to set it up even. Right. So, but the CRM, remember, is something that you can do a little bit later. You don't have to have in the beginning. So in the beginning, what I would recommend is having drafting software. You have to have a way to collect payment. So maybe that's LawPay. You need to have a way to have your engagement letter signed, especially if you're practicing virtually. So maybe that's something like DocuSign. And you need to have an intake questionnaire. And those are the 4 things that you really have to get going. You don't need much more than that. So I would focus on getting those things in place and then starting to get some conversions and starting to get going with people hiring you. And that's all that really matters. You can add some of the bells and whistles later.
Yeah, you can start out simply with Excel or Google Sheets or just whatever program, whatever system you're in. There's something that you can simply keep track of clients, potential clients and all that. And then use that as a springboard to getting something more robust down the road when you're ready.
Yeah, an Excel spreadsheet is fine too. The main thing is, it's not as good as the CRM, but to start out, you need to keep track of your numbers. So simply an Excel worksheet where these are our leads and this many people hired us and this is where the lead came from, and keeping track of all of those things so you know this marketing method worked really well and this one didn't. You just want to start keeping track of that. If someone asks you what's your close rate? Well, you should know,
Right.
62%, 89%, like you need to know that, because if you're spending a lot of money getting people in the door and a lot of those people are booking a consult, great. But if your close rate is 20%, well, that's a problem, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or the reverse is you don't get that many people in the door, but you close everyone who comes in, right? So now you need to spend more money on marketing. So this goes back to the ACE, the attracting, closing, executing. Where are you struggling? If you're struggling with one of those pillars, attracting leads, closing, doing the work, then you're either going to be working more hours than you want to be working, or you're not going to be making as much money as you want to be making. So It's important to keep track of the numbers so you can figure out where in the funnel am I losing people.
Right. Well, you're speaking my language as a whole here, because I'm a big fan of processes. I'm a big fan of organization, I'm a big fan of tech tools to help with all that stuff. And I've talked to people over the years, like trying to give them advice or whatever. Even if they don't want it, I'll still give it to them. But, but a lot of times when someone pushes back, it's like, oh, I don't even know where to begin, because they've got a system. It's not a good system, but they just can't wrap their head around trying to pull everything together in any sort of a organized process. Would you coach somebody who might be kind of like overwhelmed by the thought of trying to come up with something to organize their chaotic system?
Yeah, what I would say is systems and processes don't necessarily always translate into a fancy comprehensive software either. True. So, for example, we teach in the course a 3-meeting process, right? You have a consultation, you have a design meeting where you design the estate plan, and then you have a signing ceremony. Even that is revolutionary to a lot of lawyers, because they were just, one client, maybe they'd have 5 meetings, one they'd have 2, there was just no process in place. Right. So that means you can't automate your emails. It's just everyone is different. So everything just becomes chaotic. So sometimes a system or a process is just simply, we move you through the estate planning process in 4 weeks. There's going to be 3 meetings, 2 are going to be virtual, 1's going to be in person. Everyone goes through the same process. Now, when you're sitting down with your clients and you're counseling and you're advising and you're drafting the documents, that's not going to be cookie cutter, okay? And the reason it's not going to be cookie cutter is because you have time to focus on that, because the systems and the automations are doing the heavy lifting with booking meetings and all of the administrative stuff. So it really frees you up to do the work that needs to be done non-cookie cutter, right? Which is advising your client, drafting the documents. But just moving everyone through the same process, whether you're tracking that on a CRM or on an Excel spreadsheet, it doesn't really matter. It's the fact that you have a process to begin with. And so many students, when they join my course, that's the first thing they say is, thank goodness, I have a roadmap. I've got a flow chart of like, this happens now, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then that's it. Rinse and repeat.
Great advice as always. Well, thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Legal Pad with attorney Laura Cowan. To connect with Laura, head to 2hourlifestylelawyer.com, and that 2 is the digit 2, or Laura at 2hourlifestylelawyer.com. And please like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Laura, always great seeing you. Thanks so much for all the insight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.